2016, Ecorse, Michigan, the calm of a peaceful night was suddenly shattered by a horrifying sound. A man who lives in the area named Savante Hampton described it as being so loud that it woke up half the neighborhood. He said the noise sounded like a gun being shot right next to his ear. Shortly after midnight, the residential neighborhood on 17th Street, between West Outer Drive and Salliott Road, was jolted awake by the sound of screeching tires and what was described by emergency responders as a catastrophic crash that looked like a war zone. The tragic accident ended the life of a beautiful, vibrant, ambitious 20-year-old woman named Donita Alford. Donita and her friend, that was the passenger riding with her that night, were blamed for the accident. It's strange how it all happened. Why was Donita driving so fast, 75 to 80 miles per hour, on a small residential street?
A young life lost. A high-speed crash on a residential street takes the life of this 20-year-old. And police in Ecorse tonight, they've got just one question they want answered badly, and that's why was this 20-year-old going 75 to 80 miles an hour through a neighborhood?
It happened on 17th Street, right around Outer Drive. Lauren Padell spoke to the victim's family as they search for answers.
Tires scattered, car parts broken, a young life lost.
She was just an outgoing person. She always kept a smile on people's face.
20-year-old Donita Alford was ejected from her car Friday just after midnight on 17th Street near Outer Drive in Ecorse. The friend with her rushed to the hospital after this devastating crash. A crash Ecorse police say the girls are responsible for.
Well, it was a little strange because it was in a residential area. The speed limit in this area is 25 miles an hour.
Donita was a smart, hard-working young woman with a good job, a promising future, and dreams of one day becoming a nurse. Just hours before the horrific incident, she had been full of life, working at the airport, where she was known for her dedication and warm personality. Her family and friends spoke fondly of her aspirations and plans for the future, plans that would tragically never come to pass. The first news reports of the accident described Donita as sitting in a parked car that was hit by a speeding vehicle, but soon after the news reports changed. The updated version unveiled a totally different description of the tragic incident. This is the editor's note that Fox 2 News Detroit added to one of their news articles on the accident, stating that their reporting of Donita Alford being in a parked vehicle was incorrect. The accident had actually happened as Donita and her 25-year-old female friend drove down 17th Street at the very dangerous speed of 75 to 80 miles per hour, far beyond the residential speed limit of 25 miles per hour. As the car hurtled down the street, disaster struck. Donita must have been moving too fast to avoid collision. The car violently crashed into two parked vehicles. The force of the impact was so immense, the parked cars were catapulted into nearby yards, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The neighborhood, which moments before had been silent and still, was transformed into a chaotic scene of wreckage and debris. Residents were awakened from their sleep to a shocking tragedy. The way that Donita died is so horrifying and so awful. It's just utterly heartbreaking. The impact of the collision was so severe that Donita was ejected from the vehicle, her body tragically coming to rest in the worst place possible. The vehicle, which had launched into the air upon impact, fell down on top of Donita, now lying directly in the path of several vehicles that were struck in the collision. She was hit by a sliding car. According to Fox 2 Detroit News, Donita Alford was speeding when she rear-ended a car that was occupied by two men, which started sliding down the street with the men inside the vehicle. And one of the men in the car was injured and taken to the hospital. The other man, in his early 40s, attempted to flee the scene but was quickly apprehended by the police, adding another layer of complexity to the tragic event. A total of 5 vehicles were involved in the accident. It was chaos and commotion in those nightmarish moments right after the collision. The tragic result of the destruction was the irreparable loss of life. There was Donita, lying there on 17th Street, shortly after midnight. Her injuries were too severe for her to survive, and she was pronounced dead at the scene by responding emergency medical personnel. Donita Alford's mother, Regina Alford, described the last time she saw Donita, and shed some light on what Donita and her friend were doing on that fateful night. She stated, "I told her I loved her before she left the house. She was spending the night at her friend's house, they worked together, and were going to work together in the morning." Donita's sister, Davina Hogan, grappled with the irreplaceable loss of a sibling. She said, "I'm just calling her phone. I know she's going to come home from work soon because it's not real. It don't feel real at all." Losing a family member is an absolutely horrible ordeal in itself, but if that person dies young and ahead of their time in a horrific accident, it only makes the grief even more painful. Everyone that was injured in the accident on 17th Street had non-life-threatening injuries. The only person that tragically passed away was Donita Alford. This was a chaotic, catastrophic, and perplexing tragedy that the city of Ecorse would never forget. The Alford family will always have the beautiful memories of the bright young woman that they knew. Donita was such an amazing person, and it's a tragedy that she left this earth far too soon.
Well, it was a little strange because it was in a residential area. The speed limit in this area is 25 miles an hour.
But the accident reconstruction team determined Donita was driving at 75 to 80 miles per hour down 17th when they hit this dark green Oldsmobile from behind with two men inside. Donita then crashed into two other parked cars, sending them onto front lawns. That's when Donita was ejected and killed.
She's always a good girl. She always outgoing. She always with ambition. She bought her first car. You know, she's been working ever since she was 16.
One of the men was hospitalized. The other took off on foot but is now in custody. As for Donita, she had 5 sisters. Family told us she was a hard worker, an aspiring nurse.
She actually just paid some of her nursing school classes, and she was on her way to start her first class next week.
And police are trying to figure out why she was driving so fast through a neighborhood. And while cleanup out here continues, Donita's family tells me her friend is in critical condition at this hour, but is expected to be okay. As for any charges for that man in custody, still waiting to hear back from Ecorse Police. Reporting from Ecorse, Lauren Podell, Local 4.
Meantime, Ecorse police say they plan to interview the victim's friend from the hospital.
That's fear. Coming together, that shows that we're tied. That shows that we are united. Why are we afraid to come together? You know, I'm not saying come have dinner with me. I'm just saying stand with me on the things that are affecting your neighborhood and mine. We need to show the criminal element that we're united, not that we're afraid.